Hedera's success will be dependent on what's being built on top of it, and our builders are absolutely knocking it out of the park. They may put the hoods up and go quiet at times, but what they're building is nothing short of revolutions in several different verticals, and we're going to be talking about several of those teams here today. Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, here every week to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem, but as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first team we're going to be talking about is Neuron. Of course, they're a decentralized physical infrastructure play. They've just had a really successful beta test where they deployed a bunch of land-based sensors, which currently are being used for drone tracking and aircraft tracking, but they can be used for pretty much anything, and that's what they're targeting. They're going to go after all kinds of different verticals, from autonomous vehicles to smart cities and so on. But what they announced this week is that they raised some money to the tune of $3.5 million. In their press release, they also mentioned that they're gaining some traction. They have some real revenue. As I mentioned, they had that sold-out beta program, and they have 6 major software-as-a-service integrations. And I also had a clip that I wanted to show from Neuron's Project Blueprint.
Welcome, we're here at Dartech Center at Cranfield University. Last May, we went and showed the Blueprint kickoff event where we had drones flying and simulated aircraft flying at each other. It's now June 2024. We've now got real drones, real aircraft, and we've got detect and avoid systems at play here. We've got 120 people in the building. We really look forward to today's event, and fingers crossed everything goes fine.
So it's now just touched the ground and it's now come over the southern end of the runway. And now hopefully if we look out the windows, we'll see the aircraft coming over our heads. And that is pretty much, I think, the end of the demonstration. But if you want to go and look out the window, you're welcome to.
Now, I could absolutely keep going on about Neuron, but I want to get it from the horse's mouth, so I caught up with James, and he's going to hop on the show here in a couple weeks. The next team we want to talk about is Emtech. They're providing CBDC solutions with Hedera at the base of their tech stack. They also raised some money, and while we don't have a figure for them, what's impressive about this announcement is it came from Accenture. So Emtech partnered with Accenture, and just to give you some figures around how big Accenture is, their revenue last year was $64 billion, and they have over 700,000 employees worldwide. Now, this story was picked up by Cointelegraph. I'm not exactly surprised that Cointelegraph didn't cover Hedera, but the founder and CEO of Emtech, Carmel Cadet, cleared that up for us. She said, "Thank you for your support along the way, and yes, we're still working with Hedera for our CBDCs. And this next point is really impressive." She said, "I have not found another protocol that meets our standards for CBDC." She also quoted Hedera community member HBAR Shrimpson, who said, "I think Hedera has the only governance model that might have a chance of being trusted by a country to host its CBDC. I don't know all models out there, but most are sketchy. Hedera's governing council is a proper decentralized global legal entity." And Carmel said he's right on target. Now, of course, I understand the hesitancies around CBDCs. As Rob mentioned, there are different types. There's retail and wholesale CBDCs. But if these things are going to be built, I'd rather them be built on public networks like Hedera. All right, so the next thing we're going to get into is another team that has been with us from the very beginning, and that's Tune FM. Of course, Tune FM is a streaming project. Think of it as the Web3 Hedera version of Spotify. And they announced that they got an additional $50 million worth of capital committed to the project. And as noted by CoinDesk, this news comes just 8 months after Tune FM shared that they raised $20 million in a funding round. Andrew Antar, the CEO and founder of Tune FM, is actually the first person in the Hedera ecosystem that I met face-to-face. We used to do meetups in Philadelphia back in 2018, so I love to see this success. I also saw that Tune FM was featured in Rolling Stone magazine. We're going to get back into some Hedera projects here in a little bit, but first, I've gotten some feedback that I only talk to people that are within the Hedera ecosystem, and I wanted to branch out a little bit. We have a lot of supporters out there, but they're focused in all kinds of different areas. One of the best is AJ from AJ Writes Crypto. He's become a heck of an influencer in his own right, even though he started with BitBoy Crypto, but he had some really good insights, especially around marketing. So let's listen to what he has to say. AJ, buddy, thanks for stopping by.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a great time. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So, AJ, to start, what do you expect out of the crypto market in general over the next 18 months, and why?
Well, man, a lot of people got really excited over the ETF hype this year and all the early bull run. And I think what we saw in March this year was just a little peek behind the window on what we're really going to see when a proper bull market happens. Let's look at the anatomy of what happened in March of this year. It was all hype. It was during a phase of quantitative tightening. If you go back in the history books, we've never had a bull run in a phase of quantitative tightening. So it is actually kind of nice to see what the market can do when we're not printing money. And, we are next week, we're going to have hopefully the first slash in a very long time. And there is a lot of weight given to this slash, and I don't think it's baked in at all, because I think the accumulation of many slashes is what's going to make the economy feel like we're in a phase of quantitative easing again. So I feel once you combine the monetary policy with hopefully favorable regulation from the White House, and we've never had a bull run in I'm not worried about anything. Like, we've never had that either.
Sure.
So imagine, the storm of quantitative easing, favorable regulation, more accessibility from ETFs. It's a global thing. Man, with the 4-year cycle, a lot of people were saying all the bull run 24. And I was just like, no, we're actually still projected to be Q3, Q4, 25. So, and I'm sticking to the 4-year cycle until it breaks. It hasn't broken yet. So how are we going to assume it hasn't breaks if it hasn't broke? So that's where I'm at, man. I think Q4 this year, a lot of charts are on the edge of breaking out and have bullish divergences on 3-day charts, HBAR included, Ondo, the Graph, VeChain, Algorand, Jasmy, FET. All of those charts are on the verge of breaking out of long-term downtrends. And they're holding certain Fibonacci levels as well.
So going back to, that 4-year cycle, do you think it's just something to do with the presidential cycle? Do you think it just kind of coincides with the liquidity cycle? We had, the run in 2013, 2017, 2021. So do you think that's mainly because of the liquidity cycle and, just the way easing works and so forth?
I think it has everything to do with the halving. Because when the halving happens, for the miners to make the same amount of money, the price of Bitcoin has to double. And generally after the halving, that has happened. I think it's between 5 and 8 months, or 8 and 10 months. I forget the exact number off the top of my head right now. But, there's a lot of, basically Bitcoin is programmed to pump. And when you pair that with favorable monetary policy, which has been the confluence the past 3 bull markets, it was monetary policy paired with the halving. That has been the killer combination for crypto this whole time. And then once you add more factors into it, like I mentioned, favorable regulation and stuff like that with it, when people say the word super cycle, I think that's possible coming into 25. I'm not even kidding.
Okay.
It sounds great to say out loud, and it's really good for clickbait, but I'm not even joking. Yeah.
Well, we really do have a confluence of a lot of different things coming together. Number one is the ETFs, and it takes a while for that, even though we've had tremendous inflows to this point, it takes a while for that to actually get into the traditional financial market space and get all those financial advisors really up to speed on it. So that could continue going forward. We are entering what looks like a loosening cycle as far as monetary policy. And if we have a more favorable regulatory environment, administration, and so forth, that could really be a lot of good things that could be going forward, giving us a good tail run going into the next several months. Let's focus a little bit more here. That I focus mostly on the Hedera ecosystem. Yeah. I think many in the Hedera space, myself included, we get caught in our own little bubble. that goes for a lot of different people. You know, they get focused on their own network, and they don't really pay as much attention as maybe they should to the rest of the crypto space. But you have a little bit wider lens. You're paying attention to several different networks. You mentioned a lot of them right there. So from the outside, what's your perception of the Hedera ecosystem?
Yeah, well, before I answer that directly, it's important for people to remember that before I became AJ Writes Crypto, before I became BitBoy's writer and eventually became my own influencer and got to where I am now, I was a day trader. I didn't care what a project did. I didn't care about smart contracts or NFTs. I cared about the chart, the patterns, the volume, the liquidity. Like, that's all I cared about. And so it was actually, it made a lot of sense for me once I kind of stepped into the shoes I'm wearing now to always zoom out and to talk about as many projects as possible, because as a trader, it doesn't really matter what a project is. If a chart is hot, it's a hot chart and we're going to trade it. And having that lack of tribalism and that I'll trade anything that looks good, that mentality I feel got me to where I am, to be honest, because I understand the tribalistic aspect of crypto, but at the same time, when there's a lot of infighting and when I say, oh, today I bought, HBAR, VeChain, and Algorand, and someone in the comments is like, what about Cardano? It's like, okay, bro, like chill, So to answer your question, what do I think about Hedera, man? I think it's a rock solid project. I always have felt that, good projects are directly associated with good leaders. And when I think HBAR, I think Lehman. I know there's other names there, but let's be honest, he's the guy that created the hash graph. He's like the mad scientist, in the laboratory. And he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. I personally know him. I've interviewed him. He's a really great guy. And I think the leader of a project says a lot about a project. You think Ethereum, you think Vitalik, you think Cardano, you think Charles, like, you know what I mean? And having him as the, waving the flag, that says a lot about the project. That's a very simplistic point of view, but at the same time, it speaks volumes. Secondly, I have always liked the governing council aspect of it, and specifically the names on the governing council, and really getting that. I think a lot of people sleep on the fact that Hedera is one of the projects that has actually reached out beyond Web3 and get, multiple Fortune 500 legit top shelf companies giving them a pat on the back. And I don't know that many other projects in crypto that have the Web2 reach that HBAR has. And let's be honest, like, when you're making crypto content, sure, a lot of people that watch it are going to be people already in crypto, but it's equally important to try to grab people that are not yet in crypto. And you're going to achieve that through Web 2. And I think Hedera is unmatched when it comes to looking at it through that specific lens. So I feel like it's certainly a good time to be patient. I think it's a sleeping giant. And I think once, some of the stuff, I'm not really sure exactly what's going on with the foundation or anything. I don't know it like you do, but I do know that there's a mess that needs to get cleaned up. And I hope there's not like some sort of catastrophic fallout for Hedera. I think it's really important to separate the foundation from Hedera. But, like we mentioned before we started the show, like when the MyAlgo hack happened, everyone thought Algorand got hacked. Well, really, it was just a wallet, a third-party wallet not attached to Algorand named MyAlgo that got hacked. And everyone's brain, went to the gutter. And hopefully, that same thing doesn't happen here. And hopefully it's not as bad as some of the tweets make it out to be. So overall,
I think the necessary changes will probably come to fruition, but it's a time of uncertainty. I've been talking about this recently, but I do feel like those necessary changes are going to be made. Now, I do want to get some of your possible improvement opportunities here in a second, but you mentioned Algorand, you mentioned Cardano. One of the things that just came out around Hedera is Lehman acting as a leader with the Decentralized Recovery Alliance. So we have Algorand on there, we have Cardano, we have XRP. You can go down the list of, Lehman pretty much acting as a leader for the entire industry, and some of these other legends coming on board for something that's been an issue in the space. What are your thoughts around the Decentralized Recovery Alliance?
Dude, I absolutely love DREC, and I was actually at a conference right here in Atlanta, Georgia, called Web3 Atlanta, and I saw that Lehman was speaking at nighttime at like this other location, and I was like, that's Lehman Baird. I'm going. Like, Jada, get in the car. Like, when she was like, are you serious? I was like, it's Lehman Baird. Like, we're going. And so I sat in the front row with a big smile, like, okay, this is going to be good. And he spoke about DREC, how it's the best way to keep secrets, the trust layer of the internet. It's not just for crypto. It could be for any secret. He broke the whole thing down. And I was like, this... Like Ledger, Arculus, they're all gone. This is revolutionary when you actually think about how many new jobs it creates. Like, you could just be a secret helper keeper person, and like decentralized, like there's so much to that. And that was before Algorand and XRP, and now Cardano recently, the final founder. It was before any of them got involved. And I sat here right in my hometown and listened to Lehman say this thing. And then I watched Algorand join, and I watched Ripple join. I just watched Cardano join. And it's so funny that in a short amount of time, since the first time I met Lehman in person, how much this idea that he had, that he spoke to a room full of 60, 80, 70 people, how much that idea has grown. And it was really cool for me to personally watch him give his speech about it before it even popped off remotely. So I do have like a special connection to the DREC Alliance, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about, to be honest with you.
Well, it's good stuff. I mean, we're tearing down those tribalistic walls that we're seeing and working together, and that's exactly what we need to do moving forward if we want to see all the potential. But getting back to Hedera, to maximize our potential, what changes do you think need to be made in the Hedera space?
Well, I think it's important to look at what your strong suits are first, and then fill the gaps. And name a better crypto community than the HBARbarians. I'll wait. Of course, you got the VFam and the Algo fam and the Cardano community, all amazing communities, but there is something special about the HBARbarians. I think it's just because the name is the best. We have the best name. If Near had a community, they should call it the Buccaneers, but there you go. They're bad at marketing. And so what I'm going to say is that the grassroots organic growth and that excitement level from the HBAR community has always been just like thumbs up from my point of view. For me, I think obviously, okay, how do we get other people excited? How do we infect other demographics with this notion? And how do we expedite the process? And I think it all really comes down to marketing. And I think that's a really easy thing for me to say, because a lot of people know, if you've done anything in marketing at all, how difficult it is to... There's a big difference between, say, we need more marketing, and actually doing the work, doing the steps that it takes to get that successful global outreach.
Sure.
And a lot of marketing does come down to how much money you're willing to spend. And another thing people don't realize about marketing, I mean, let's look at VeChain here, for instance. And I'm partnered with VeChain, full disclosure, and look at their partnership with the UFC. Name a bigger label partnership in crypto. That's top three.
Sure.
But it really comes down to, okay, their name's on the mat. Okay, they have the commercial, but it's about activating the partnership. And what people don't know about marketing is that the ratio for activation is 1-to-1. So say Hedera pays $100 million to have ads for the Super Bowl or whatever. For every dollar you spend on a label partnership, you spend another dollar for activation. And I think a lot of people don't understand what that means and how to activate a partnership and the tactics that you can use to like it's one thing to have the sponsorship. It's another thing to make everyone aware of how important it is. And I think a lot of people, they spend this money to get their name somewhere, but then it's just there. There's no one there talking about it. And to be honest, look, Hedera's name being on the mat at Karate Combat. for example.
Sure.
That's awesome. It's great to see it there. Let's go team. But why is there not like a booth at Karate Combat selling Hedera merch, explaining with a QR code for wallet downloads? Why are there not Hedera influencers there going around talking to people in the crowd? Like, why is there not an outreach? You paid for the label partnership. Activate it. Activate it. And that is the biggest thing. And that's what VeChain does very well. I'm going to UFC 306, the first fight in the Sphere, Sugar Sean O'Malley this weekend, wearing my VeChain shirt with my best friend Crypto Face, one of my best friends Crypto Face, and we're going to take a bunch of pictures, hashtag VeChain. And that's activating that partnership. And why is Hedera not doing that?
There's so much substance behind that. I mean, the Up Only Gaming, it's a Hedera token, an HTS token, and I've tried to do a few things, around the Karate Combat partnership. Can't do it anymore, but I had a booth there. I think the last one we had a booth there, and it was really, really successful. But hopefully we're going to gain some traction with that. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head with everything you're saying about Hedera, and marketing has been a sore subject at times, and you're hitting a lot of things that I think is going to resonate with the Hedera community. Now, I appreciate you coming on here today. You're always a great advocate for the Hedera space. We appreciate that as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks so much for having me on. We've met in person a couple times. You're a really good guy. So everybody watching this show, smash the like button, subscribe to Brandon's channel. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in person, super approachable. So first of all, big thank you to you and your professionalism and your channel. I mean, I'm grateful to be here. Seriously, that means a lot. In my camp, follow me on YouTube at AJ Writes Crypto, Twitter, AJ Writes Crypto. I do have a alpha Telegram group if you want to get involved. Send me like day trading charts. I post almost every day. I've made a lot of other people money trading. I post like all my setups and stuff. All my personal setups go in that Telegram group. If you want to get involved, send me an email at ajalphagroup@gmail.com. And also a little bit of alpha I'll drop right here. I am signing pretty soon here with Verified Investing, and I will be launching probably like a 15-hour, 12-module crypto course with Gareth Soloway and the team there. And we're expediting the whole process, hoping to launch it by January. And I will be doing live streams with Gareth, doing TA and everything like that. And that's just another spread like that. I mean, it's marketing, guys, right? You want to be everywhere. I do my own channel. I go on BitBoy's channel a couple times a week. I do spaces with Mario Nafal. I'm doing this thing with Gareth. You want to spread out like an octopus and be everywhere. And that is, I can only talk about marketing for projects. I'm not a CMO. I don't work at, I have partnerships. I'm partnered with Algorand, VeChain, Femex, and a lot of other companies like that. But I can only say what I'm saying about marketing from the perspective of how do I market and brand myself. And how I market and brand myself is to try to spread myself so thin that no matter where you look, you see me. And that is what I think a lot of blockchain projects should take a page out of the AJ chapter. It's kind of arrogant, but I'm just saying.
No, covered, well said. Yeah. Congratulations on all the things that you have cooking, and congratulations on the recent engagement. And we hope we can have you back real soon.
Yeah, anytime, man. Open door. I'd love to have you on my channel. Maybe a decentralized dialogue episode. We'll do that soon.
Love to hop on.
Sweet. Awesome. Smash the likes, everybody. You guys rock. H Barbarians in the house. Let's go.
I love sitting down and having conversations with AJ, and I hope I can jump on his show here before too long. The next thing we're going to jump into is from Brady from Bonzo Finance. He was formerly at Swirls Labs, and he was at Hedera before that, and he wrote a really well-received article where he was focusing on metrics for the Hedera ecosystem. The idea was we should change what we're looking at within the Hedera ecosystem. And the different metrics he listed were network fees and revenue, DeFi total value locked, DEX trading volume, stablecoin liquidity, real-world asset market capitalization, NFT trading volume and market capitalization, and finally native staking and liquid staking rates. Now, anybody who's watching knows that I think we should be focusing on different metrics as well. I love the one on revenue. I think also market cap is a really good one as a proxy for the capital that's available for the entire ecosystem. But instead of reading through the entire really well thought out article, I'm going to actually have a conversation with Brady around this really important subject. Now, we have a few differences of opinion, but I'm sure we're going to be able to get that hammered out. I'm going to be doing that this upcoming Monday. The next thing I'm going to get into is the Twigital Summit. So my week was cut a little bit short this week because I went up with our team of developers and Jesse, my co-founder at Twigital, to talk through the future of this project. Right as we were wrapping up, I grabbed Jesse to talk about everything that we went through at the Twigital Summit. So we're going to listen to that next. All right, so we are here at the Twigital Summit, and we've been talking with the rest of our development team about what are some of the next steps for Twigital. I think I want to go back. Where does the Twigital app stand now? I know we had some changes recently, but I just want to see where we stand now, and then we'll talk about where we're going.
Yeah, well, it's great to see you again, Brandon. Always great to be in the same room. So the Twigital app has come a long way. Almost a year ago, about 11 months ago, we launched the world's first digital twin tokenization engine. We think that's pretty cool. So what that means is all within the workflow of the app, you're going to be able to scan and digitize an object. It creates a forensically analyzable one-to-one scale model, digital model of the object, and then it's going to tokenize that and encrypt that. It'll take the form of an NFT. This happens right now on Hedera, all within the workflow of the application. So we've worked out a lot in the past year, coming from sort of inventing this concept to bringing it to fruition and now having a product in the iOS store. So the evolution of the product was initially used something called photogrammetry, which is where you're taking still images around a stationary object usually, or if you have an object that spins on a turntable in front of your lens, you can do it that way as well. Currently, we're using LiDAR, which is probably more akin to video, where you can circumnavigate the object and just take a video of it and make a 3D model that way. So both have their merits. There's a lot of different things that happen on the back end with compute for both of these different things, but we're really learning about all of these different ways that we can digitize things. And so now we're in a great place where the app has been really stable. It's working really well. We've got some good usage and people are having fun with it. So that's where the app is today.
Now let's get into what are some of the things we can do with this in the future? It's been one of the things that we've talked about a lot. It's cool to certainly take these objects and tokenize them, but it's always about the next step. So what are some of the things that we talked about today of allowing people to do something with some of these digital twins once they're created?
Yeah, well, we're all about that progress, right? So as you can see by the logo spinning up here, one of my favorite things about this logo for Twigital is that there's nothing in the middle of it. The whole point of it is that the thing that's in the middle is the object being scanned, and that's the important thing. That's the user. The user is at the center of the application. It's a decentralized application. It's the whole point, right? So whatever the things are that are important to you, you're going to want to be able in the very near future to import those things and be able to use those things in a lot of different ways in a spatial computing environment. So our logical next step, now that we've kind of worked through what does it take to create the world's first digital twin tokenization engine, is what can we do with these tokenized digital twins now that we've created them? And so the first implementation we're going to be adding to our product is going to be spaces. So you're going to be able to populate some spaces with the assets that you're creating using Twigital.
One of the things a lot of people in Web3 and Hedera understand that you can connect your account through Wallet Connect, through Hash Connect with Hashback to these different applications. You know, you might be going to a DEX or a marketplace or something along those lines. We're planning on allowing people to do the exact same thing. So all of the things that you've created, you can then go into this 3D environment, place them around, and pretty much use them as your worldwide showcase for all the objects that you treasure. So it's been exciting to go through that. We're talking about a lot of other things as well, maybe some marketplaces, but it's been a blast to get together with the development team to this point. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on?
Just thanks everybody in the Hedera ecosystem. You know, I've been around a long time. It's really great to see all the developments, and yeah, thank you so much for using Twigital. We can't wait to see how people are going to use it. And yeah, look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, it's been a great idea and it's been a wild ride so far, and I'm looking forward to it in the future. So obviously we have a lot of plans for Twigital going into the future, a first of its kind application, not just in the Hedera space, but in the entire crypto and Web3 space. We are going to have a space on Twigital probably on Monday. I haven't nailed down the time yet, so keep an eye on the Twigital X account to get a time. So another team that's building on Hedera that, of course, is hitting on all cylinders is Karate Combat. You guys know how much I love Karate Combat, how much I get into these events. And I sat down with Mac Tyson. A lot of the analysis that you see around Karate Combat originates with him. He pays more attention to these fights and fighters than anybody you can think of. So I sat down with him and got some insights around what's coming up at one of the biggest events they've ever had, Karate Combat 49 at Token 2049 in Singapore. He had some really good thoughts and it ran for about a half an hour. So I'm not going to do the entire thing in the weekly update, but tomorrow you're going to be able to catch all of the fighters. But here's Mac talking about the main event coming up here in just a few days. Mac, welcome. To start off here, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're a good person to go to when it comes to Karate Combat, these fighters and these fights?
Well, as people call me, I prefer the term karate expert, but people have been calling me the Karate Combat Encyclopedia, just because when it comes to knowing about these fighters, especially the ones that have fought more than once in Karate Combat, I tend to know all about them. I analyze these fighters, and I have a deep knowledge of the fighters and karate in general, and also have quite a bit of martial arts experience in myself. Over 10 years in karate, was on the boxing team in university, American kickboxing black belt, in addition to my karate black belt, and also training Muay Thai right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us a little bit of time. I am going to explain Up Only Gaming, why we're kind of here today. So Karate Combat built a token on top of Hedera, and it's an Up Only Gaming token. And all you have to do is download the app, and then you can get karate tokens. They give you a few free ones. You can also get them through promotions. You can get them on a decentralized exchange called Saucer Swap. You can get them on centralized exchanges like KuCoin, and you can also buy them directly through the app. So you can get them on Android. You can get the app on iOS, and then you're going to have the opportunity to pick which fighters in these Karate Combat events you think are going to win. If they win, you get more tokens. If you lose, you don't lose anything. So that's certainly nice. Now, if you did go out and buy them, the token is volatile, so it could go up and down in value. So you could lose in dollar terms even if you get some more karate. So I just want to give that quick warning out there. But certainly it makes these events a lot more exciting, and I've had an absolute blast with it. But without further delay, I want to get into these fights so people know how to potentially participate in the next event, Karate Combat 49 in Singapore. That's going to be just in a few days on September 18th. Let's take a look at this main event. We have Roca, who we just found out from you was replaced by Bruno Assis. Now, Roca was the champion at, I think, 9-3, and Bruno Assis is 6-4, but he's only gone against top flight contention, but he's running into another buzzsaw with 5-0 Rind, who a lot of people think is the future of this weight class. How do you see this one going?
So Bruno Assis, he's a huge veteran. I think he might have the most fights in Karate Combat history. It's either him or Luis Rocha. So when it comes to time in that pit, it's like a second home for him already. Again, one of those guys that comes from, he actually did just come from a pure sport karate background before coming into Karate Combat, never fought full contact before. And he was on a tear in his early years. His first loss came to a high-level opponent in Edgar Screevers. And that's kind of been the pattern right now. Assis has been able to beat everybody except for the top of the division. It's kind of a
champions and former champions.
This actually kind of works better for Shazabe in the sense that the biggest criticism for him going into this title shot is he hasn't fought anybody worth of note. He hasn't fought any ranked opponents. His lineup, while impressive, like he fought a former UFC fighter, but the former UFC fighter was more of a grappler, not a real high-level striker. So we haven't seen him face a high-level striker. So if he beats Bruno Assis, it kind of shows that he is one of those top guys. He deserves to be in the top leagues of the division. While Bruno Assis he has a lot to prove here because he needs to prove that he has gotten to that next level. If he's able to beat Shazabe, it means that he would be ready for that title shot. I think Shazabe is going to have the advantage here. I haven't had too much time to think, but at least I know these fighters really well. The reach advantage is going to play a role, even though because of that classic karate training, that distance management, if Bruno Assis is able to bring that back into his game, that means a lot less. A reach advantage means a lot less against a traditional karate blitz striker because they're able to close the distance so well. And you saw that really well for the old school MMA fans in the first round of Lyoto Machida versus John Jones. John Jones has a huge reach and height advantage. Out of everybody that John Jones has ever fought, the person that's been able to close that distance the best has been Lyoto Machida, in my opinion. And it's due to that distance management that karate is so good at. And it's going to be interesting because I'm literally thinking about this matchup live while just like visualizing how I think the fight's going to go. Bruno Assis puts power into everything he strikes, and it's not predictable. Like when he fought Gabriel Varga thought the way he sets up his round kicks was very easy to catch, but it proved a lot more tricky for him to fight because even though he throws it with power, it's not like the traditional Muay Thai round kick where there's no snap to it. He adds more of that karate snap to it, making it a little bit more tricky for the timing. But with Shazabe, he's just been on such a tear and is such a great striker that I feel like in the early rounds, it's going to be a little bit more closer. It's going to be a little bit more back and forth. Very entertaining fight. And if Bruno Assis starts to weather as he goes on, because when you throw power into everything, that's very hard on cardio. And he hasn't had a lot of time to prepare for this fight. I don't know what shape he's in because he took this on short notice. And also credit to Bruno Assis. Like,
sure.
He's a guy that he'll fight anyone, anywhere. He fought Gabriel Varga, a multi-time world championship kickboxer, and fought him in his preferred range. The guy is not afraid. And that's going to be a huge asset for him.
There's no question about that.
I'd say the only way Shazabe loses this fight is if he starts underestimating Bruno Assis. If he thinks that this is the number 7 ranked guy, he's not on my level, and gets overconfident, over cocky, I could see Bruno Assis catching him because he does have that good power. But if Shazabe is to keep it calm and collected, plays a smart game plan, I'd say that Shazabe is the favorite for this fight, and we'll probably see Luis Rocha try to unify the interim championship with Shazabe at the end of the year.
All right, so I do have a follow-up question here. At what ratio of picks, 90%, 85%, would you start to think about picking Bruno Assis?
I'd say if it was in the high 80s, 90s. Because the thing is, it's up only.
Okay.
So in the meta, it seems that like if you're very confident that a pick is going to win, then always vote where you are confident that the guy is winning. If you don't want to listen to my analysis and you're just saying, I see zero chance of Bruno Assis winning, even if the pick is 99%, go with the 99% because if Shazabe wins, you still get a token bonus. It's not as big, but you still get that return. But however, since it's up only, if you vote Bruno, you don't lose anything. So it's no loss. And the reward payout is going to be so much more huge if you vote Bruno Assis and he wins. So if it's that big of a disparity that like people are voting Shazabe in the 90s, start considering voting for Bruno Assis. You might get that upset and that huge payout.
All right, good to know. So, Mac, thank you so much for jumping on here today and giving us all these great insights. If people want to follow you and get some more of those great insights, where can they do it?
You can follow me at Mac Tyson Karate pretty much everywhere, Instagram, Twitter. And also, if you want to just rely on me, you can also, in the app, delegate your tokens to me so that I can make the picks for you at Mac Tyson Karate.
There you go. Not a bad deal if you aren't familiar with the league. Again, Mac, thank you so much for hopping on, and I hope we can talk again soon.
I hope so, too. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So again, if you want a full analysis on the entire pro fight card for Karate Combat 49, I'm going to be posting that with Mac on my YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check that out tomorrow. Next up, we have some news from Earthlings, but really I want to focus on Saucer Swap and some of their processes. So being a true decentralized exchange, they also use their Sauce token as a governance DAO on making decisions. For adding V2 pools and things like that, they have to go through a vote. This happens on a regular basis, and the latest one that's coming up is from Earthlings. And of course, we want as much support for Steam as we can get. If you do have any sauce, you can go to the governance site on saucerswap.finance. Then you can vote for the Steam V2 proposal. And that vote should be going on right now. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to get into stablecoins, and we're going to go down to Australia. The premier Australian stablecoin, the Australian Digital Dollar, hashtag AUDD, is adding support for a Hedera version. This is with support from the HBAR Foundation, and if I had to guess, Sabrina had something to do with it. Now, of course, I could have dug deeper into this, but I'm sure Rob is going to have some insights on it, so I'll just hold off until next week. But speaking of Rob, we'll go ahead and jump into Shark Bites. Rob, welcome back. How are things going?
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, it's been a great week. I've had the honor of being one of the judges on the Hedera Hello Future Hackathon, which has been awesome. I've been judging the AI track, actually, so some really, really excellent submissions that have taken a lot of thinking, a lot of picking apart what they're trying to do. We have a working group. Hedera Governing Council have an AI working group as well, so I've spent a lot of time immersed in the AI side of technology at the moment as well. So having these combined projects, some of which are doing the more obvious thing, which is data integrity and provenance and validation of the inputs and outputs of the LLMs. And some are a lot more sophisticated in many ways. They're more product focused, using AI where AI works well for that solution, and then using DLT and Hedera for where that works well. So the combined kind of products that are being emerging from that are pretty cool. Actually, there are 2 or 3 there which I think have a really good chance of being brought to market. And of course, with the scalable DLT, where you have maybe a combination of process optimization through AI and then automatic interaction with smart contracts or directly with the core services. There's for DeFi or for payments or for data integrity. It's really very cool. And there's a lot of submissions to the hackathon as well. I think there are over 2,000 submissions. There are multiple tracks, different categories. So I'm only looking at the AI track, but all the kind of the normal faces are in there, and a lot of new developers and builders as well. So I'm super excited about when the prizes and everything are announced in the next week or 2.
Well, we've had some fantastic teams come out of past hackathons, but it seems like from the submissions that I've seen so far, this probably is going to be one of the most successful ones we've had. Yeah,
I think it reflects the maturity of the kind of the developer community, the growth of the developer community, the fact that a lot of these builders have earned their stripes now. They've got real chops in building on Hedera. So, whereas maybe a couple of years ago, we were just seeing some very basic and crude HCS utilization or token utilization. Now there are a lot of really interesting utility around Hedera services. So, I can't wait to see all the ones that I haven't seen. I mean, the ones that the 15 that I had to judge on the AI track are just a small subset of the total. So, very excited to see what the other builders have brought to the table as well.
Very exciting. All right, well, we're going to dive into these questions because we have a fair amount today. So the first one I have comes from Alan, who says, question for Rob Allen. The Australian Financial Review this weekend reports that the cost of tapping a debit card is a new flashpoint, eliciting rebukes from Canberra and fueling populist politics. For example, a $5 coffee costs $5.08 after fees, with credit/debit cards processing 15 billion electronic transactions a year, for which they charge 7 billion Australian dollars in annual fees. Is it fair to say if we cannot sell Hedera payments in Australia now, we never will? And he has a second question asking, are the big four banks the slightest bit motivated in moving to Hashgraph?
Wow, that's a pretty deep question, and it kind of cuts to the heart of what I do at Australian Payments Plus. So a little bit of context for this one. The Australian Financial Review is Australia's equivalent of the Financial Times. It's a very well-considered publication, comes out every day, both website and in paper form. It's kind of the go-to place for all things to do with the Australian economy. The cost of payments is something that AP Plus is very focused on. The questioner and the AFR are quite right in saying it's something that needs to be dealt with. Now, it's not within my purview in AP Plus, but we've got many parts of the team because we run the national payments infrastructure. So we have a real-time payments infrastructure called MPP. So that's an account-to-account type payments. We've got FPOS, of course, which is our debit card infrastructure. We've got bill payments infrastructure as well. So, if you pay businesses or government, there's a kind of a different scheme for that. One of AP Plus's main primary purposes is driving down the cost of payments. And it is fair to say, it's correct to say actually, that the unit cost of payments, dependent on the routing or the routing of those payments across these different networks, is variable. But it is still quite high. If you look at a MasterCard or a Visa, the international schemes, transaction fees are related to the various hops that it goes through to transfer from merchant to acquiring bank to issuing bank and to customer. So there's all these parties and all these different hops, and there's all this infrastructure in between these hops, all of which are taking a fee or taking a slice of the overall transaction fee. And depending on the routing, the costs are variable. So it's very, very difficult. I mean, I've been working in payments for over 25 years, and every organization I've gone to, one of the first questions I've asked is, what is the unit cost of payments? How optimized are you in processing your payments? Usually banks. And no one can ever tell me. It's a really kind of dark art in these payments, so these fees. So picking this apart and driving down the cost of payments so it's good for Australian merchants and Australian citizens and consumers is one of our primary purposes, including building trust in our payments infrastructure and maintaining it and innovating as well. So I sit on the innovation end of the spectrum. So we have FPOS, and FPOS is a lot cheaper in terms of its routing. We have least cost routing, so that drives costs down. But they're still in the order of 4 or 5 cents for transactions. So, if you buy a coffee, for example, that might be $5 Australian. You're paying, and you're paying on your card. You're paying, or the merchant has to absorb a lot of that fee. And as we talk about micropayments, it becomes quite pertinent because that fee is a flaw in terms of the commercial viability of many of the use cases that we're looking at creating in the micropayment space. So when you can implement entirely new infrastructure where the cost of these transactions is less than a cent, in fact, it's 1/10 of a cent or even down to 1/100 of a cent, depending on the services you use, then it changes the whole game. This isn't just Australia, this is global. The big card payment networks, the MasterCard and Visas, have sweetheart deals with banks, issuing banks. So, on a regular cycle, one or other of those is in the process of trying to win over banks so they will issue, and therefore that particular payment scheme will get the benefit of that relationship with that bank. And obviously, the bigger the bank, the better the sweetheart deal. So, there are a lot of tensions. There are a lot of commercial relationships to overcome, and it's not just about technology. In fact, it's very rarely about the technology. It's about the contracts and the commercials. However, and that said, I'm a massive advocate for micropayments. I think it's an entirely green field because no technology to date has been able to do it properly. We've tried micropayments in the past. It's been very much a centralized largely batch-driven back-end process and has never really worked. But now we have a highly scalable, very, very cheap, very predictably costed infrastructure that we can implement things like stablecoins on. It changes the game. So there are many use cases that couldn't previously be implemented on traditional payments networks, which we are now looking at kind of implementing. And I've got a long list of use cases, and kind of finding the way to actually implement that into a kind of national infrastructure is the kind of long-term goal here. So we're working very hard to achieve that. Whether or not the banks are, in the words of the question, the slightest bit motivated in moving to Hashgraph, it doesn't really matter because the payment rails actually exist between the banks, right? So the banks provide, and in fact, in Australian Payments Plus, they're the owners of these payment schemes. But the payment schemes operate the rules for membership and the infrastructure that underpins it. So part of the reason that I'm so passionate about payments is that it's the great connector of all of these banks, all of these institutions, all of these actors and participants in national and international payment systems. And so, whatever the banks have on their end, as long as there are connectors and standards and ways of integrating with the rails, they can choose whatever they want. And of course, I would always recommend they go with the best technology for the purposes that they're seeking. I'm too old to go into battle with every bank on the planet to convince them that Hedera is the best technology. I'll let them realize that for themselves.
Fair enough. Now, one of the things you mentioned, it's a greenfield use case, these micropayments. I call it a frontier use case. And that's what makes it so exciting, is it's something that wasn't possible before, ultra efficient DLTs like Hedera. Yeah. So it has me really excited. Would you say that you're best placed out of all the people in Australia to answer that question that just came through?
Absolutely.
All right. So the next question we have comes from John. He says, SharkBite's question, Rob, what would it take to motivate builders to use HBAR as their token instead of creating their own token on top of HBAR? Right now, each application creates their own token instead of just using HBAR itself. Examples, banks convert to a stable coin before transferring to other banks. Karate Combat creates their own token, etc. Now, Rob, there are going to be plenty of use cases that have to have their own token. There is going to be some places where HBAR is important. In the HBAR economy, it's the numeraire as far as DEXs, right? You're going to have the biggest pairs between HBAR or USDC and all of these other tokens out there as a medium of exchange for a lot of the marketplaces. In our Twigital Summit that we just had, we were talking about that. And HBAR would usually, because it's the native token for the ecosystem, would be used as that medium of exchange. But we also want to allow credit card payments and allow USDC payments and things along those lines, because we don't want to limit people for our business. But Rob, what are your thoughts on this question? I understand why he's saying it. There's certainly places where we can expand on the HBAR economy, but there's also some places where it just doesn't fit.
Yeah, it's always a fine balance to strike. Every project wants their own token. It's kind of an identity. It's an element. Being able to create your own tokenomics, and the tokenomics instill motivation within a community. It's a very essential part of Web3. But then at the same time, it comes with a lot of deep considerations that have got to be made. You can turn your community off if you have bad tokenomics and lose them forever, right? And HBAR is there, and I think a majority of cases HBAR would do. Right? You could use HBAR within your platform. In fact, we've got a question coming up about stablecoins and USDC, and I think the same thing applies. If you use and utilize the tokens that are already there, and they are a numeraire or a unit of value that can be transferred between projects, then it's the tide that lifts all boats. That said, where there are very specific reasons to have one's own token, then absolutely go for it. I mean, the whole purpose of having a token service is that one can create these fungible tokens that form the glue for that community and actually provide the utility to interact with that platform. And so I just think that there's projects need to consider that. And you don't have to kind of go all in on tokens from day one. In fact, it's probably better, and it's almost a cliche, but one needs to build the community first and then deliver the token. So, product first, platform first, get the utility in place, work out how to engage your community, and then issue your community currency, as it were, not the other way around. Consider it carefully is what I would recommend.
Sure, makes sense. Now, we have a few from Tom Bega. We had them last week, but you wanted to do a little bit more research, so we're going to dive into those. He has 3 of them. The first one is, have any of the banks on the governing council considered offering an API token service where they are the custodians of HBAR and governing council members/enterprises has a drawdown service that they get billed for net 30? Then he laughs and says everything is net 45, 60, or 90 these days. So, Rob, this is an interesting concept. What are your thoughts? Kind of abstract away the HBAR.
Yeah, and so I did spend an extra week just to have a bit of a think about these questions because, Tom provides lots of really good input on the socials, and he's a deep thinker. So I wanted to kind of give him credit of providing a thought-through answer. Whether it's deep or not, I don't know. But so I think that the answer is I don't know of any of the banks on the governing council that have considered this. And the way that I understand the question would be a kind of custody solution. So abstracting, as you say, abstracting away, the bank would custody using its own custodial solutions. The cryptocurrency, so HBAR, one would assume that it would probably offer other cryptos as well if it were to go to HBAR as well. And that's quite a lot of effort for a bank to, move from TradFi to kind of custodying crypto. In fact, in many of the jurisdictions, they're not licensed to do that yet, so they're not able to do it at all. But the idea is actually really important because, we have a challenge within the governing council for some of the council members holding HBAR, holding or owning the wallet that at the very least, is used and is associated with the node that they operate. And there are ways to help them, and Hedera, the LLC, has been working with all of them. In fact, it's one of the objectives of CoinCon this year to ensure that every governing council member has a solution where they can hold the HBAR so that it can receive the network fees and node subsidies and those sorts of things in HBAR. So. But I'm not aware of any of the banks actually doing or considering offering that as a service. Now, maybe once we are in a clearer regulatory environment and they already have the processes around holding the wallet, then some of the more innovative ones will wonder whether or not they should provide that as a service to other users of the network that hadn't gone through those processes to hold HBAR on the balance sheet, or however they want to account for them. So it's a really good idea, Tom. So thank you for that. And we have been talking to several third-party services that will provide that abstraction layer. And in fact, AP Plus are working with one locally here in Sydney to do exactly that, to almost provide an Amazon Web Service type credit that abstracts away from the wallet and the volatility of the HBAR, so that one can just interact with the network directly. And I think that is probably the solution. Now, whether or not that's assimilated into a bank custody service or is kept separate, time will tell. So there are kind of solutions to that. The net 30 thing, now for people who don't understand, so net 30 just means 30-day invoice and billing terms. So 30 days to pay your accounts. It does lead me on to some other things that we've been looking at, and I know other council members have been looking at, which is billing solutions. When you've got big corporates with multi-party relationships with many other businesses, either in consortia, or let's say payment systems or schemes or telcos, where there's a kind of constant flow of invoicing and billing, and you've got to track, and there's kind of a heavy operation around that. Maybe there's a lot of reconciliation to do. Much of that is manual. You've got interventions on error. There's fraud management and all sorts of other processes around it. It's quite a big drain on big cost center for these enterprises. And there are some very good, decentralized or DLT based architectures kind of forming now as we've been looking at these as service areas that are consistent for many different types of business. And I can't really say too much more about those at the moment, but the removal of file transfers and reconciliation processes and fraud tracking, maybe with some kind of AI-driven pre-processing, which then generates the transactions that can be responded to, coupled with identity. There's a lot of aspects in there that have Hedera written, right through the middle of them. So plenty of really interesting things around billing, invoicing and billing, I think that we are looking at.
Certainly some good business opportunities there. Now, Tom also had a more pointed question around the governing council than we normally get. He said, given the ties to Quest via Hasker, Higdon, and Kramer, were there attempts to recruit them to the governing council, or is this that one enterprise that qualified but was not accepted?
Another loaded question from Tom. Thank you. So Quest Software, very big enterprise. I am not aware ever of Quest having been approached to join the governing council. It may well have been. It is true, though, that Shane Higdon, David Kramer, and Christian Hasker all worked there. In fact, David Kramer was there for nearly 10 years, up to 2012. Christian was there for 8 years, up to 2012, and Shane for 5 years, up to 2012. And so the sequence of events, as I understand it, is Hedera, the original Hedera under the founders, hired Christian as a CMO, I think on recommendation of Zenobia, who knew Mats pretty well. What then happened when we decentralized to the foundation, Christian recommended Shane Higdon to be CEO candidate, who was then interviewed and hired by the THF board. And as soon as he arrived, he reached out to David Kramer, who he worked with on and off for a number of years, including at Quest, to be the COO. So there's no governing council kind of aspect there. I mean, it's possible that Christian at some point said, why don't we go to see if Quest is suitable for joining the governing council. I don't think it would have actually made the cut from the perspective of the criteria that are assessed for governing council members, but maybe he did. But it was just people like to hire people who they've worked with successfully in the past, and that's what happened with Shane. Now, I assume that this is the case because I went to his LinkedIn page, and it's I'm either blocked or he's taken it down. So and I've heard from other community members, where's Shane gone from LinkedIn? I suspect the recent events have led to him kind of taking cover.
Well, fair enough. We're going to move over to your bread and butter, something that you might feel a little bit more comfortable with. It's around payments again. So Tom asks, given the number of ecosystem projects working on payments flows and systems, Galaxy, Drop, Pixfy, etc., have you considered the creation of a Payflow working group to share best practices and explore opportunities?
I hadn't. But I think it's an excellent idea, and let's definitely think about that now. We talked last week about setting up a space that's payments specific, and we just need to schedule that in a time that isn't the middle of the night for me. But you're right in saying that we have a growing number of projects that are focused around the movement of value. I mean, that's the core of commerce anyway. So I would suggest that the majority of our projects and grantees are building something at that aspect. So sharing notes, learnings, just general discussion around payments, like you say, my bread and butter. And I would love to do that. Maybe get Sabrina in there as well, because she leads the payments and fintech fund at the foundation and is a massive source of knowledge and a wonderful person too. So maybe we'll set that up.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so we're going to stick with payments, actually stablecoins right now. Soham has a question. Given the market cap of USDC on Hedera was reported at around $10.2 million at the end of Q2 2024, down from previous quarters, what strategies or initiatives are being considered or are necessary to boost adoption and increase the USDC supply on the Hedera network, especially in light of the growing DeFi ecosystem on Hedera? Babushka had a similar question, a little bit quicker with this one. What are the actual plans for deploying HUSDC, so the Hedera version of USDC, everywhere?
I think it should be one of our top priorities. I honestly think that issuing USDC on Hedera, HUSDC, I can't think of anything that is more important at the moment. But it's supply and demand. The demand has to come first. The USDC is issued by Circle, but the liquidity is provided by market makers. And those market makers need to be incentivized to provide that liquidity for the issuing of these tokens on Hedera. And then we need demand. So like we said earlier, I think there's a great case to be made for USDC to be used within the dApps, within the projects, as well as HBAR, as well as the project's own token. A stablecoin on Hedera like USDC would add value. And then with demand, with the utility, the market makers are incentivized as well to issue on Hedera, as opposed to the other chains that USD is issued on, and we will be in a far better position at that point to grow. 10 million is paltry. I mean, it's almost nothing. So we, even though we've got this integration, it's not being used. So usage is what has to come first. Maybe it's the DeFi ecosystem, but maybe it's true utility. I mean, maybe it's actual, projects, and why not both?
Well, I really think it needs to be those on and off ramps. That would be my highest priority, certainly starting with Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, Gemini, have them support HUSDC, the Hedera version of USDC, because the businesses that might use USDC, they need to get back to dollars so they can put them in their bank accounts. So that would be my top priority.
Yeah, and it should be Elaine Song's top priority as well at the foundation. The crypto fund is responsible for on-ramps and off-ramps, and there's been very little activity in that area for what seems like years. So it really needs a focus, and I think the focus has got to come from the foundation. We do have enterprise use cases that are USDC based, so WorldPay, Flutterwave, but they don't have to be USDC on Hedera. So we need to drive that liquidity, drive that usage, and like you say, the on ramps and off ramps are really essential for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Harinder has a question on the technical side of things. He asks, when is sharding coming to Hedera?
Well, when we need it. Sharding,
don't need it quite yet.
We don't need it quite yet. So there's a number of technical prerequisites, as we've talked about in the last few weeks, in terms of getting to multiple shards, things like state proofs, node operations, etc., and then scale. So, the purpose of sharding is to allow the network to scale almost infinitely, and we don't need it yet. It's kind of on the roadmap. We need to keep an eye on it. We need to move towards it. But when we, are doing 20, 30, 40,000 transactions a second, then that will become a huge priority, I suspect, for the network. But not at the moment.
Well, we don't want to push it off too far. No. We want to be ready before we get to that point and not be getting pushed to that point because of demand.
And that's why we're prioritizing, the dependencies, the roadmap dependencies. So, state proofs and the others that I mentioned, so that we are ready to go to sharding when the scale ramps up again.
All right, fair enough. The last one comes from Light Larry, who asks, is there a plan and timeline to update the Explorer? HashScan is clunky and hard to navigate and not user-friendly. An Etherscan type Explorer is preferable and will help bring familiarity to our space for users on other chains. Thank you. So I've used Etherscan, but it's not something that I do on a regular basis. I do use HashScan on a regular basis, but it is one of the things that Hedera is just a little bit different instead of kind of falling in line with everybody else.
Yeah, I actually don't think Etherscan is particularly useful. It's very rich, it's very data rich, and of course it's had the benefit of many more years development than HashScan. HashScan's actually was released and is maintained by Hashgraph, formerly known as Swells Labs, and they keep on top of it. But there's no reason why other explorers can't form as well. And we do have a number of other explorers in our ecosystem, the likes of HGraph, which is Brandon D's project, and very I really like the look of that. Archaea has one now. The OG in the space is Dragonglass. There's Gecko Terminal. There's Acors, Hedera Explorer, and LedgerWorks as well. So we're not reliant on HashScan only. I think it's horses for courses, and I think all of these will develop over time. So if there are features that you like Larry, on other networks explorers that you don't find in the explorers that we have in our own ecosystem, then reach out to those teams and see if they can incorporate them.
All right, that works. Now, one thing I do want to ask the audience, of course, we put this in the weekly update. We post it independently to X. If there's anything else you'd like as far as Shark Bites, if you would like it, put out independently on YouTube or something along those lines, just let me know. Of course, we have the Built on Hedera series at this point, and I'm going to be expanding to some other things as well. Mm-hmm. But if there's anything special around Shark Bites or any features that you want, just let us know. And of course, drop your questions down there in the comments for Rob. Rob, as always, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brandon. See you next week.
And the last thing before we get into network analysis is around our gaming space. The HBAR Foundation announced that they're excited to support MetavrseMe and Third Web to turbocharge Web3 gaming on the Hedera EVM. And this is specifically for teams that are using the Unity engine. This whole thing begins with Me Gamer ID, a single sign-on account that seamlessly integrates with Hedera's EVM to offer a gasless wallet experience. So again, this is a way to abstract some of that Web3 complexity out and make it more available to the masses. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into some network analysis. The transaction volume has been volatile on the Hedera mainnet, but we're currently processing an impressive 2,600 transactions per second and had a max TPS over the last week of 8,700. Brandon D did have a question following another episode where the TPS dropped off last week. It seems as if this is the result of the payer account not being topped up by the HBAR Foundation, but I don't have a good answer as to why this isn't automated or kept ahead of. I pinged the team but haven't gotten a reply. A bright spot is the time to consensus finality. Despite the impressive throughput, the time to finality has improved again and is currently sitting at under 2.9 seconds. I think we also broke a record in account creation with over 120,000 created this past week. My guess is with that kind of volume, there's a use case that's pre-creating accounts in prep for scaling. Creating 100,000 accounts costs $5,000, so it's not something you would do for no reason. Looking at our total weekly revenue on HGraph, we're down 28% due to that drop-off in Atma to just over $90,000, but removing that subsidized revenue, we're up 9%. Moving down to our fungible tokens, Karate Combat's Karate token again takes the top spot. This feels right considering I think it's currently our most successful retail application. Not sure what High 5 is, but it's in second. Next up, we have Wrapped HBAR, Dovu, and the Body Mind Life token, and I am in touch with that team, so I'll have more for you on that soon. Then we have Sauce Energy Trade Token, Siki, Native USDC, and finally Zero. Moving down to our NFTs, the Malaysian student credential is living up to our hopes with over 10,000 transfers this past week. Next up, we have Saucer Swap's liquidity provider token, the 2024 road code access card, Doctor Who Worlds Apart, the Not a Slime World token, H-Suite and Silk Swap LP tokens, the Soundprint Sector 9 Blueprint NFT, the Hashgraph naming service, and the top 10 is rounded out by Hedera Monkeys. And for the featured NFT this week, we have the Sad Cats collection from Lorelei Drawls. She's 12 years old. Her and her father were interviewed by Genfinity, and I have a few clips from that, so I'll just let them tell you about the collection themselves.
Hi, I'm Lorelei. You know me by Lorelei Draws. I created Sad Cats, my collection. Well, I've sold out my Hashnall's first collection, and then my Sad Cats full collection, 444 piece. Other collection, which is the main collection. Yeah. When I was little, I mean, pretty much everyone, when your parents give you a pencil and paper or like a crayon for the first time, you always just go scribbly, scribbly. I guess that isn't really classed as artwork, but when I got older, I just like kind of got my own style of artwork, and then, yeah. My dad does most of like the digital, like technical stuff. Like he manages my wallet, and he does all like the tweets and stuff. It just feels like you are like important, kind of, I guess. It just makes me feel like I'm actually doing something with my life, I guess. I mean, I'm probably a bit young to say that, to be fair, but like if I've seen like with the barking challenge thing on is it on Hedera?
Yeah, the barking game.
Yeah, like seeing me go like from third to second to first to second. I mean, I don't really mind if like I end up like fourth or like third or anything. It's just like actually being recognized for doing something that I love just feels like really, really nice. The night that we sold out, like everyone was like really congratulating me, and I almost cried. Well, to be fair, I did cry. My dad had talked to my headmistress, and I was just sitting, and my teacher was talking about like, pretty sure she was talking about fractions or something, and she was like, I have a special announcement, Lorelei Murray has an art collection. She started talking about it, and then everyone looked at me like dun dun dun, and I was like, I just like tried to put my hand over my head, but my real teacher was walking past, and she was like, wow, Lorelei, and I was like, oh my god. I told her about Hedera and Kabir, and she was like, oh, I'll search that up on my laptop and I'll go on that, and I'm like, okay.
It's basically trying to kind of just enforce or provide that platform for empowerment, just to say this is yours, you own it, and I effectively work for Lorelei, which is a strange concept because I can send my boss to bed at some point. But I couldn't have done this on any other chain than Hedera, mainly because of the Cabula tools and how simple they were to use.
I'm a mental health ambassador at school, and we're pending on whether to do button badges or stickers, but I've already told the mental health lead at my school that I was going to bring in some stickers, and she said it was a good idea.
If it gets to a point where she doesn't want her face, she doesn't want to have this big online presence and stuff, you know, and we've spoken about the fact that she can come to me at any point and say, actually, Dad, like, this was fun, but that's enough.
When I go back into school, I'm going to tell my new teacher that I've got a website. To be fair, he'll probably like do something and like show the class, to be fair.
Yeah, so After Dark Social Club and Ray and Stealth and Darula have essentially been kind of helping put this website together, and they've been great with it. I mean, we've paid for it, obviously, with profits from the Sad Cats collection, and that was a really big decision, actually, from Lorelei, because we were originally going to be buying, kind of some updated equipment for Drawn, and we looked at MacBook Pros and all that kind of stuff, and then we had a conversation and asked and spoke about what Lorelei wanted, and it was the website, wasn't it? So we invested in that, and which was a really big thing. What did you say on the video? Go get that merch or something.
Yeah. Go get yourself some merch.
Go get yourself some merch. We launched the merch site, which is, and I want to give a bit of a shout out actually to someone who really has kind of paved the way for the kind of project that we've done with me and Lorelei, and that's Batty Hattie. They and this is again, I guess, a testament to the community on Hedera.
Now, the Sad Cats can be found on her website, LorelaiDrawls.com, or you can go to Centex to buy some of these on the secondary market. So congratulations to Lorelai for how much success she's had to this point. I think they're actually going to have a fungible token as well called Catnip, so we'll keep a close eye on that. Next week, I think we're going to focus on the Mouth's NFT thingy, NFT. I'm not exactly sure what the plans are around that, but it certainly looks interesting. And with that, we're going to jump into some DeFi. The total value locked for Hedera is $47.8 million. 45.4 of that is on SaucerSwap, 2.5 million on HSuite, and 1.5 million on HeliSwap. Crypto had a bit of a push down following what was perceived as a poor performance by former President Trump in the debate. Trump is the candidate that the market clearly believes is good for crypto, but the week still ended pretty strong. Bitcoin is up 11% on the week and 2.7% on the day to just about $60,000. HBAR is up 12% on the week and 4.4% on the day to 5.2 cents. We weren't sure if 4.5 cents was going to hold a while back, but it looks like we're in good shape there. So to wrap things up this week, I don't think the Hedera builders are going to be denied. Whether that's Neuron, TuneFM, Twigital, Emtech, Karate Combat, you can just go on down the line of all these teams that are completely dedicated and having more success all the time. And if the Hedera builders are going to be successful, then Hedera is going to be successful itself. So next week, I did get in touch with a new representative from Toko, Tom Popowitz, who is going to jump on and give us a quick update. We're going to get Brady on to talk about what are the most important metrics for Hedera. Of course, we're going to get Rob back for Shark Bites, so drop your questions down below. On Monday, we're going to have that space for Twigital, so certainly join us for that one. That's all we have. We'll see you next week.